Hello and welcome to our second installment with Zeeshan Haider Khan, Zeesh for shorthand. And he's over there in the beautiful countryside of Wales. And he's embracing nature and all of its bloom here in this wonderful August. And I thought it'd be nice if we chat again. We had a nice chat last time, got nice feedback on it. Zish told me that he enjoyed it and he had friends that enjoyed it. So here we are again. And I think that if we could just give people something to think about besides all of the insane nonsense that's going on in the world, then we're doing a service. So how you doing there, Zish?
Thank you, John. Thanks to be back and great to be with you all. Yeah, really good. Really good. Like John said, we're August. We're in a temperate climate here. Just moved up to the mountain from the local town. We were in the town for about 2 years, and we've. I said to Catherine, the mother of my four children, I said to her, I said, when we're bursting at the seams in the house, little town house, with the plants and the seeds and the food, the organic growing, I said something else will happen. So I'd been up to Inverness, been up to Scotland, looking at biodynamic walled gardens, and life's a funny thing, isn't it? It never really happens the way that you expect it to, and but you put the effort in, you put the work in. Last few years, I was in a townhouse, wasn't happy with the water. I remember last time we did our fireside chat, we ended on there's something in the water, and it got to a point where I was distilling the water, and I was like, I need living water. I'd been on the spring water, and I was like, I need living water. So I started to make that commitment to myself to walk, to hike, to get my backpack on, recycle my 1 litre apple cider vinegar bottles, and just get out there, speak to people. And it started with the holy well. Then I met like an elder, a husband and wife. I suppose I should share this really. I was walking like 2 miles to a place called Betus Bledrus. You'd really like it, John. There's a really beautiful church there, beautiful stained glass windows. They do like a meditation on Mondays. And obviously, with all this craziness, all the churches and everything have shut down and everything. But I'd usually walk to this place. And on Sunday, unfortunately, it's not the best day to stick your thumb out and hitch. There's hardly any public service. And so I'd walk. And I remember one day getting to that bridge, I was at the bridge and I was like, shall I go and try and find that spring at Cillian? And as I asked the question, the sun came out, and I thought, there you go and try and find the spring at Cillian. I was like at the halfway house, if you like. So I got up to a certain point, and I was in all this thousands of acres of common law lands. There's still elements that can remind us of where we've come from. And before this place, old common law land with the gypsies and the tinkers and the hedgerows and the ancient wisdom of where we've come from. And I put my bags down. I thought, I'm going to find this spring today. And I walked a few miles, and I couldn't find it for the life of me. And I got back to where I'd left my bags, and suddenly Alan, who's been born and raised there, turns up with his wife Beryl, and they're like, Zish, are you still looking for that spring? I said, Alan, I am, yes. He said, do you know where it is? Just last night, me and my wife were talking about the willow tree where I used to get my water from. And literally, to the point where my bags were, that's where the water was. And from that moment on, it's like we started to rekindle the water for the community, not using the word community to enslave us, but in the true sense of the community. So for those few years, I harvested the water. I'm harvesting the water for my family, not just myself, but for my family, for the bread, for the sourdough, for the broths, for many people for the nut milks and all these different things. And now, 2 months on, we're on the mountain. I've literally just gone to harvest some water from the spring, and we're here. We've just started a new blog. It's called The Black Gold Garden, and we're growing food. We've had our heads down for the last 2 months, and I've been connecting with John. And yeah, so life is good. You know, we're busy in the grind, but with all this craziness, this chaos in the world, this insanity going on in the world, we are feeling that it's really important that we know where our food comes from seed to soil. And then we're also, I think this is really important, that we're then thinking about the next few, you know, I'm thinking right now about the bees and 300 years from now. What am I leaving for my children? And a wise man said, when is the best time to plant a tree? 15 years ago. When's the next best time to plant a tree? Today. And on that note, over to you, John. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a beautiful concept. And about, oh, let's see, I'm an old dude, so it's quite a while ago, but back in, I've told this story before, but I always feel good when I tell it. So I'm going to tell it again. And if you've already heard it, then you can suffer through it or go do your laundry. Anyway, yeah, back in the late 70s, me and a very dear friend of mine who passed away not too long ago, Steve Farmer, who was one of the founding members of the Amboy Dukes with Ted Nugent. He was an avid tree planter. Every fall, he would go out and he would plant trees. And from his estimation at that time, he told me he'd probably already planted around 1 million of them, maybe more. But he did it every year, and I couldn't keep up with him. I did my thing, and I thought that I did good. I planted about 10 or 12,000 of them, and in 1 year, and they're what's known as loblolly pines. And the loblolly pine it's a tree that grows. It's a pine tree that grows straight up, and then up at the top, it has its pine needles way up at the top, 90 feet in the air. And so I feel good to know that out on overlooking Chesapeake Bay in Maryland, there's 10 to 12,000 90 feet tall loblolly pines just out there taking in the sun and the wind and everything like that. So I feel like I don't feel so guilty being surrounded by all these books. But yeah, and what's interesting about trees is that they're like a imago or an image of themselves in their root systems. Plants, if you wanted to figure out where to put a tree near your home, you got to figure out how wide the foliage is going to be on the tree, and then that'll give you an idea of how wide the root system is. And so consequently, your pine trees and all of those, they have these roots that go down just like it looks like an underground pine tree. But if you have like an oak, you have this large growth of root system that looks about the same shape as the upper foliage. And so we have nice red maple trees surrounding where I live now. And I feel really good about that, except they drop all those little helicopter things. And I get all these seedlings coming up, and I'd love to let them grow, but I think my neighbors wouldn't like it.
Oh, that's, yeah, those little helicopters are fun, aren't they? So trees, yes, different shapes and sizes. And so, you know, we've just taken on an acre of land, and you know, right now the first thing we're thinking is, you know, what are we eating? What are we buying? And you know, we often hear like shop local, think local, think global. There's some saying, isn't there, like think global, shop local, think global, and all these kinds of different sayings and everything. And I remember moving into transition town, and I genuinely thought that the oil was going to run out. So I've always seen myself as being somebody who's green, you know, like authentically green, no agenda, you know, no green New Deal or anything like that, you know, but a real one, maybe a real Green New Deal. And so like we're like, okay, you know, we're supposed to be in this age of austerity, and you know, we've got 4 children, and we kind of like to make our own food because it tastes delicious. We have 2 children that have had an autoimmune diagnosis, and so it's had us really like it's made us close. It's made us really look at the ingredients in the food. It's really made us like just really want to connect to the food that we have. And Kate's down there now with our little nursery, and you know, we're bringing on the seeds, and we're learning from, you know, you've shared with me people like Aaron Freed Pfeiffer, so you know, I've gone and got his orchard book, and you know, we're continuously learning, and I'm now preparing, you know, starting to learn about the tree pastes and things like that. And I'm dreaming all the time, you know, I'm hearing, you know, I'm dreaming, and we're getting the children involved. It's the Black Gold Garden, and you know, I suppose Aim for Truth has inspired me to create a blog. So I'm starting to write a blog, and I'm called. I asked my daughter. I said, "What should I be called?" And she said, "The Opal Earthworm," because we've been moving. We're learning like how important it is to have everything like this closed loop, sort of organized system. Because each one of us, like John's got his own unique biological system going on where he is in, and we have our own unique closed loop system where we are. When I came here, I'd almost given up looking, and I said to Kate, Kate, shall I go and look? And when I walked the 2 miles or 5 miles to come here to view here, which I remember sharing with you, John, and I had a little Bible with me, and I walked up the hill and was very open to receive the wisdom that was going to be here. Didn't really know what to expect. It was during COVID-19 lockdowns, and it was very serious the way that people were behaving. And so, but I made that journey, and when I got to the end of the track, and I really stayed focused and really took in where I was walking to, at the entrance, there were 2 horned beasts, which anyone that knows about the biodynamic preparations, and that's very important to have the horns on the beasts and stuff that I'm learning right now. And so that when I walked down here, I was like, wow, there's like horned beasts. And right next to us, then when we got here, I have a little 5-year-old son, and it was really and the first thing I seen was, call me an agronomist at heart, a lover of good soil, and with you know, the earthworms and all that stuff. And I said to Jeff, my landlord and now friend, I said to him, do I get access to that mound, this earthwork mound of sauerkraut biome cow manure? And he was like, yes, that's yours to work. And I was like so happy, because what I'd been doing while I was in the town, we had a small patio garden, but we made do with what we had, and so we got the pots going on. We supported local seed chapters that are around here, like the Real Seed Company. We supported them, and there was the Biodynamic Seed Cooperative, which I can tell a really good story another day or today about that. That's quite wonderful how we ended up there, and that was really good. And we've been using those seeds, and then my sons would be eating apples and collecting seeds from the apples that they liked, but there wasn't much soil. We had a stone townhouse patio garden, so but we were determined to address this situation. We were determined to grow our food, and from that now, I really do feel in my heart, you get what you think about most of the time. And again, now we're learning like how to feed our family, and yeah, I would love to. There are trees here, John. There's trees here. You know, we've planted a few trees here, not knowing if we're gonna see them again, but we've left them here, and I'm thinking now how important it is to maybe create orchards. And anybody can do this. In America, I'm really inspired, actually. You have a really good seed company called Baker Creek Seeds. Do you know them, John? Have you heard of them?
No, I have not. No, but I haven't been doing much seed research. What I've been thinking about is the seeds that are dropping from the trees around me. If I should like figure out where I'm going to put them so they can have a happy growth.
Yeah, those helicopters are fun, aren't they?
Yeah,
Are they actual maple trees, or are they?
yeah, they're
Or are
red maple.
red maple? So could you tap them and make maple syrup from them?
Well, I thought about that. I don't know. Again, I don't know what the yield would be. You go to all that trouble and you end up getting like a half a cup syrup or whatever. I don't know. That's something I haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah.
Although, since you're talking about biodynamics, I can give you a couple of interesting asides. Back in the 70s, where I met when I met Douglas Gabriel, it was at the time when there was this great convergence of people interested in Rudolf Steiner in the area of southeastern Michigan, because they'd started the Waldorf Institute of Mercy College, which was started by Werner Glass, and there was also Ralph Marinelli, who I worked in the heart research with, and there was also a medical doctor that was involved in the very beginning. But anyways, that was where so many of us used to constellate. And Douglas was going there, and other friends like Brian Lynch and whatnot were going there, and they had this absolutely fantastic biodynamic garden. It was there, and the gardener that put it in was a gentleman who's since passed on, who was a remarkable individual. I mean, I'd go to one of Werner Glass's lectures. Werner was he was a student of Walter Johannes Stein, the noted Grail researcher who wrote the Ninth Century, of which my first book is like a humble sequel to, of sorts. But anyways, I'd go to a class of Werner's. I look out the window, and Alan York would be out there, and he'd be hoeing the ground, right? And he'd just like keep going all the way through, and he'd still be going at the an hour later after the class, he'd still be working the soil by hand. I mean, the strength of the man was incredible. He was slight of frame, but he was just incredibly strong. But he had studied with a interesting gentleman that you can find reference to, a guy named Alan Chadwick, Alan Chadwick. And Alan Chadwick was the guy who he's known for what's called biodynamic French intensive gardening, where he works with these raised beds that he just got incredible results from. And I can attest to it, because I remember the first time that I met Alan was I went to the garden. I thought, this is absolutely fantastic. And I looked, and there was a pea plant. And Alan was way over on the other edge of the garden with his back to me. And I popped up a pea off because I wanted to taste it. And I popped off. And he spun around. You'd think I pulled a hair on the back of his neck. And he's like, don't do that. He was really, really intense about never to pick anything until it's the right time, and so that was an objective lesson for me in being sensitive to the cycles of nature.
Wow, was that a good pea, John?
It was wonderful, and it wasn't even ready yet. I mean, I
Yeah.
could remember going there to buy like lettuce, and you'd hold this lettuce, and it was so alive. It felt as if it was like like resonating. I mean, it was just like, and you'd eat it and it would elevate your consciousness. It would like give you this clarity. It's hard to describe. People are so uh, like dumbed down with all the weird 90,000 chemicals that they use and the strange way in which they've decided to grow food and all that. It's a wonder people can even think. So it's anything that one can do to improve your position within the great cycle of nature is just going to pay off tenfold or better.
Yeah, totally, totally. It's quite interesting. And Zeesh, just a kid from Newport Gwent, a townie. Oh, Afghan granny didn't speak any English, but she had her hands in the herbs. But she was, I could tell you all these romantic stories, and I suppose in elements they are romantic, but she liked watching wrestling, and she was a real character, and lovely lady, and but if I can do this, we can all do this, it's like, the water, and we start with the water, we start with, where's my water, those little simple questions, who's, like, I'm like, I have here, they're very like, you must learn Welsh, and I'm like, well, yeah, I could learn Welsh, but who's got my butter? And I think those little questions that you ask, like, like, where's my butter coming from? Where is it? I live in Wales, an amazing place, John. Like, you can still find old pieces of like larch or bits of old butter stamps that people used to use. But for you to find raw, unpasteurized, pasture raised, Mr. Chadwick of cow buttermilk out there,
Yeah.
you're going to be pushed. But it's there, and you make that decision that you're worth it, and you make your decision to take, do that transfer spending or investing, and take your money away from, the supermarket or the Whole Foods that think it's okay to sell some GMO, but we'll sell organic too. And you start to make that decision to actually go, well, actually, that's not okay, and I'm going to go and support the lunatic farmer down the road, or the Quaker farmer down the road, or the small food co-op down the road, or the 200 farm down. Maybe it might be a few states away. Like for me, it's like I'm getting my butter from a 200-year farm called Lincolnshire Poacher. And they still do it the traditional way. They're allowing the cow to be a cow. They're leaving the land to be within that whole organism. And as John was mentioning about the pea and that ripeness, and obviously he was like the king of peas, and he was the king of this zone. But you know, could you really say to, like, my son Besnar, he's in a 17-year strong body, but he's still little Bilberry Bez, and he's out there now with his little 5-year strong brother, and they're fighting amongst as the apples are ripening. And then I suppose we could ask ourselves, when really is the apple ripe? The squirrel is certainly starting to eat the windfalls, and the slugs come in and clean things up. So it's like, nature is continuously, because I was reading some the other day, oh, you can't eat, green fruit because it's acidic. But try and tell that to my 5-year-old when he's like, come on, berries, so it's really good. And I'm really thankful for John having me here. I got to say it, we are in the struggle, but good it's good. I don't want to be on no pedestal. I'm connected to John. We were saying the other day, and from learning from John and Michael McKibben and all of you, what all of you stand for, and how we're using the internet to be able to communicate stories. And the internet is telling us stories. And isn't it a breath of fresh air when we're able to come together and utilize this tool that we've been given by Michael and by good people, and like John sent me something yesterday on Tesla, but I've got hardly any bandwidth. And people like Tesla now would be like just going, what on earth is happening when we've got all this amazing free energy? We've got all this opportunity for there to be no hunger, no poverty, no worrying about your mortgage or your bill repayments or any of this stuff, and this imbalance. You know, you're looking at these people that are supposed to be, and I'm just thinking, and I don't really want to focus on them, because it's like what John's saying. It's like, you know, and it's like what we're saying is, we're just saying you are what you eat, you are what you drink, you are what you feast your brain, your mind, you know, the books that you're reading, investing in. And I think we have got so much, like, we can make so much change with the energy. I met these Hawaiians, and they said to me, they're like these Huna women, and one of their sayings is like, energy flows where attention goes. And I remember one of my hippie friends one day saying to me, money's energy. And I was like, what is he going on about? What is he going on about? So what we're doing now, all our money's going on butter, it's going on good fats, it's going on, if we need some vegetables, if we need some almonds. I remember on the 19th of March, during lockdown, I'd gone down to the local supermarket. I'd just been at the allotment. We were in the town. We got the allotment bursting at the seams. It was my son's birthday. We needed to get some parchment paper on March the 19th. And I remember walking into the supermarket, because it was the only place open to go and get some parchment paper. And all the cupboards, all the shelves, I remember seeing the American shelves, and all the shelves in the bakery section, in all the shelves were empty. And the only section in the whole supermarket, in that bakery section, that had any food was the bottom section, where there was this stainless steel food called Lyle's Black Treacle. I don't know if you know it. I don't know if you have it there. And it was in this little stainless steel tin, John, which I'd been reading how stainless steel was good. I remember Douglas and his wife sharing about silver, but I was also reading how important it was for stainless steel as well. And I use stainless steel on everything. I love stainless steel and my cast iron pan. And it was this little stainless steel pots, loads of them, John, with these courageous lions on them. And it was like Lyle's Black Treacle. And it was like really like dead cheap. And I thought, okay, like affordable. I thought, I'm going to get a jar of that, because it looked so strong. It was like an Andy Warhol, you know, like all the soups, the Campbell's soups. I thought, it was amazing. And so I took it home. We made the cake. We made a homemade cake, simple ingredients. We made in the birthday cake. And I said to Kate, we ate that cake, and I was like, wow, what is it in that black treacle? Because we usually use the sodium bicarbonate and all that. I said, what is it that made that taste so good? And we looked on the ingredients, and in those ingredients were all the main minerals, like the calcium, magnesium. But what I was noticing was there was iodine in there. I think there was zinc in there, as maybe not zinc, but there was a nice broad spectrum of mineral. And it's very rare that we see iodine in the food supply today. And I thought that was really interesting. So it looks like, when we look at John's work with the conclave and everything about this whole 200-year war, I think if we start to look at the food, the subtle energy of mood, we start to see when those rations came in, they were slowly starting to take the important foods out, and we're starting to bring these Franken foods in. And so what I'm going to share here, which was really quite important for me to share, was how local is important. But with me here in Wales, John there in America, do we think that Monsanto is keeping it local? And so right now, it is so important for us to, and I haven't watched John's one on the whole chemtrail one, but what I'd like to say about that one, really, because we are at war, it's an invisible war, and they may be chemtrailing our skies and doing all of this stuff, but as we think local, shop local, think global, act global, let's get on that. And this is not new age, let's get on that galactic, because, you know, I look forward to those where we get to learn about what's going on in the stars and the galaxies and things like that. And it's like, Big Brother, you know, you might think whatever, but we're serving the mother and something much greater, the mystery, the awe, the inspiration, and those kids that are going into Mr. Chadwick's garden to pick the innocence of picking the pea that John had. Love it, John. Love
That's the north window of Chartres Cathedral.
Chartres Cathedral.
Yeah.
I was thinking, as you were sharing that, I was thinking about going to the water and the Chartres, the thing on the. I was thinking that. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And there you go with connectivity. Yeah, well, and keep in mind that this image, it's a zodiac. Okay, it's a 12-fold image,
Yes.
and in the center is the Holy Mary, right? And when you look at your cathedral culture, you have to say, well, what was up with that? And in other episodes, I don't remember with who, maybe it was with you or someone else, but I was sharing about how if you take the sequence of cathedrals in France that are dedicated to the Blessed Virgin, the Notre Dame, that it makes a star map of the constellation of the Great Bear. It was with you.
Yes.
And you say, well, why would that be? How is that? You know, and if you look into the locations of these cathedrals, well, they were where the wells were, the sacred wells. Okay,
Yes, yes.
and that it was sacred sites for the previous Celtic culture, you know, the Druid culture. And then you say, well, that's profound. And if you look beneath the in the crypt of like Notre Dame, for example, and in other cathedrals, you'll see images of the Black Virgin, like the Black Isis. And there used to be even Egyptian statues of Isis that were present in Europe in the Middle Age. And so you go, well, what is that mystery? That it's this whole idea of nature and its relationship to the cosmos. And so if you go to Rudolf Steiner, for example, he gave a series of lectures in Wales, the Penmanoir lectures. I'm probably massacring the name of the town, but Penmanoir. And ultimately, he also made reference to it on other occasions. And he had spoken about how some of the cromlechs and all that, he says, well, it is true that there were people buried there. People tend to bury their people at sites that were profound places, you know, centers of their mysteries. But he said that in the sun initiation of the Druid priest and his moon science, which is a lecture that Rudolf Steiner had given, it's one of the first lectures I ever read of his. He talked about the Druids observing the shadows of these great standing stones, and by observing the interplay within the shadows in the astral and etheric currents, they determined what time to plant and what time to introduce the bull to the herd, and all of these very, very cosmic expressions. And he said, you mustn't think of it in an abstract sense, like they were like calculating this and that. It was a direct perception that was their faculty as a result of their initiation and their discipline. And so consequently, yes, again, we've gone full circle. You know, we're cycling again. We get back to the well that actually is in the end of my name, Barnwell. You know, it's all about the water, really.
Yeah,
If you don't have the water, your goose is cooked. And so what do they do here in America? They put fluoride in the water, and but recently, just a few years ago, the government did a study, and if there's fluoride in the water, it can reduce IQ 10 to 15% or worse. And they decided, well, maybe it wasn't such a good idea, so they cut the amount of fluoride they put in to 50%. But they're still putting it in there. So I don't drink tap water. Uh, I have a filter that's really a good filter I got from Alex's people, and it does produce wonderful water. And but I've been into good water for a long, long time. I mean, I first heard about the fluoride thing from uh, Albert Einstein's brother did a little talk about it, and they tagged it on the end of the movie Sunseed, a movie about all the different gurus and all that. But back in it must have been about 1970 or somewhere between 70 and 73 or whatever. I don't remember, so long ago. But consequently, you can drive that fluoride out of your system using iodine, or iodine as you call it in the UK. But it's crucially important to have iodine in your system, and it's something that's greatly missing. I could tell you a story that relates to that, because one good source of iodine in a very kind of sublimated form is seaweed, sea vegetation. And I used to be involved with a product that was based on aloe vera and sea vegetables and pau d'arco, which is an antifungal, anti-parasitic, and then flavor with berries and fruits and whatnot. But I used to go to these health conferences, and I'd bring the product with me, and I'd have somebody, and I'd tell them, go like this, like push your, do you feel an energy there? And they'd say, yeah, a little bit. Okay, keep your hands there. And I would give them a little sip of the product, and they go, wow, because it made your hands feel like you had these like energy mittens on. The moment you took it, because of the bioelectrical potential of the minerals. And if you don't have the right mineral base, it's really hard to get anything going. And so I recommend people that, and if you're into farming, it's a good idea to introduce, if you can get some wild crafted sea vegetation, it's just really excellent, and yeah, it's about all about the minerals, really. If you don't have that mineral base, your body can't perform its functions, can't create the enzymes. And the fundamental difference between, you could take like a petrified human being and analyze it, and it will have pretty much the same mineral content as a living human being, except that a living human being has all kinds of enzymes, 80,000 enzymatic reactions happening within a cell in just a second or two, so that it's the enzymatic activity and exchange. It's dynamic, and you want to do everything you can to support that dynamic exchange that's continually happening in the body. And what's going on in the world today is they're dumbing us down with these things, making us less capable of being able to maintain our internal ecosystem. But see, I maintain the strongest power in the universe is an individual. And the more that they can adhere to truth, the more power that they have. And then Rudolf Steiner says, if you sacrifice that power, then you've experienced an increase. And so consequently, it's a giving. And the whole idea of the giving, it's like the cornucopia. The Grail is like a cornucopia. It's like this thing, and every time you pull vegetables out, it's like the loaves and the fishes, right? They only had like a few fish and a few loaves, but yet they fed thousands. And so, what is that? Is that just a legend? Did that really happen? I'm of the opinion that it actually happened. And so consequently, when you are brought into the awareness of the logos and the power of the word, because it was through the power of the word that he brought that miracle into being. That in participating as an agent of the logos, you have more power than all these, because all these weird politicians and all these types, deep state types, they're serving the darkness. They really don't have any power other than stuff they can craft from the material world. You know, they got all kinds of stuff going on. The prince of this world is helping them out, but the prince of this world is nothing compared to the my father is in heaven. You know, my kingdom is not of this world, and we have to keep in mind that we're trying to build a bridge to the next world. And so the key in understanding the Western tradition, as you look at the cathedral culture and you look at that, was guided by the Knights Templar. And what did they do? They were an extension of the Cistercians. And the Cistercians, you get into Stephen Harding, St. Stephen, and Bernard of Clairvaux, who was the guide for Dante in the highest levels of the Divine Comedy, right? With the Rose of Heaven. But if you look into the life of Bernard of Clairvaux, what did he do? He was the one who developed the veneration for the divine nature of Mary, that Mary participated in divinity. And for men, it's important to be able to complement their masculine through the contemplation of the divine feminine, the wisdom, just as it is for women to have the image of the Jesus as their representative of the divine masculine, because we have both. And Riddle Steiner talks about how the etheric body of a man is feminine and the etheric body of a woman is masculine. See, so that woman can give birth. Women are creator beings. So in a certain sense, they're higher than men are, because they can actually create something from quasi nothing. I mean, just two cells coming together, basically, and you have this mystery of the white and the red, which is the alchemical mystery, and the gluten of the white eagle and the red dragon come together, and out of that springs forth life. And so consequently, that's that whole concourse of nature. And the more strongly you can meditate into nature and see it as an image of the cosmos, then you're finding the cosmic aspect of Christianity that's so strong in the west of England and all. That was the Arthurian, the 12 Knights of the Round Table. That's another zodiacal image, like the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12-petaled lotus of the heart. See, so these are very profound things, and you have my books, so you have some guideways that can help you unfold those mysteries. But there's no end to it, and there's no limit to the capacity of an individual to be able to be a receptacle for that wisdom. But you can block it off by eating all kinds of wrong food and having bad habits and bad thoughts and all of that, without a doubt. I believe me, I know I've done plenty of that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Myself too. But you can cleanse, and oh my God, there's so much, John. There's so much what you just shared there. There's layers. The books, yes. So I want to say thank you to Leo, brother to another, Leo Zagami, for introducing me to John, and I just felt it was important that I've kind of went down John's rabbit hole and was inspired to invest again, the investment in these good books. We got them over to Wales, and yes, very, very inspiring. I love it but John's inspired me now to take a look at the Rudolf Steiner books too. So I have them about me, and The Invisible Power by Genevieve Berend. And, I heard a wise man saying just having the books around you is often a good place to start. And but I do find time to work with them, and when I do, it's always very inspiring. I think it's just good to be able to drink from. I think it was Coach John Wooden talking about drinking from good books. So another form of nourishment. And as John's talking about these Beetlejuice characters, how I can't help but think, like, it's okay to be afraid of the dark. My son's afraid of the dark. I must admit, sometimes I'm afraid of the dark, but isn't it crazy when adults are afraid of the light? And so, and John, that sounded really inspiring what you were saying about Rudolf Steiner and the West. I'd like to learn more about that in the Wales and everything, in the Cromlechs. And, we've been really inspired to be able to come to places where there's these Cromlechs and just moving, feeling that impulse to move, being grateful, but being unsatisfied, knowing that, I might live here now and for austerity, money's been taken away from us, but nothing can take away the pure air, the good water, the stars at night, the being able to take your shoes off. And John's mentioning the churches that still stand. And they're often really good sanctuaries and places, as John was saying, before the buildings were built. And they were built with beauty and inspiration in mind. But what was there before that was inspired to put that building there, that head cornerstone? And it was the water and the ley energy, the seen, the unseen, the ancient yew trees, that ancient wisdom of the oak tree and the holly and the ivy. And we've all come from these great mysteries beyond the east and the west and this divisiveness. And in the time of atonement, even we will forgive those that have hurt the children and all these things, because they're hurt people hurt people. So we can now start. I remember seeing this woman in the Holy Lands, and since living here, just over there the other day as I'm walking, I met a gentleman, a Christian from Palestine, and I was able to say to him, I remember seeing a Palestinian grandmother hugging the olive tree as destructive powers came in and took away their family trees. So now we can take that time to start to think about what it is that we love, what it is that we want to nourish ourselves with. John's talking about the potted physician, the aloe vera. I remember being in, I was in Orlando, and while I was there as a raw foodist at the time, we were learning about zeolites. And as John was talking about the heavy metals in the body, something like that, the charge from the aloe, how we're like these electrical beings, these light beings that I remember, we've eaten, we eat, I've eaten, I've drunk, I've smoked, I've done all these things. I've breathed things in that I shouldn't have breathed in. I've lived in crazy houses that have been doused in heavy metals and all this kind of stuff. I remember working as a warehouse operative, and my body was so clean as I was learning how to bring in clean nutrition into my body. And I remember going to Orlando, and while I was there, because we were like raw foodists, I remember, John, because it is about the water. I remember going into this posh hotel. We were there to learn about this volcanic mineral that they used. They dumped it on Chernobyl after the Chernobyl disaster. And what we, like this, we go to there's the importance there, isn't there? As many of us are being beamed by the blue beam of the light and the blue LED lighting, and now this 5G infrastructure, the 3G, and all this craziness and this invisible about this volcanic mineral that they use tea. and and uh, and and so I was in Orlando, and I remember being there, and I was like, I'm in this hotel, but all the water's in plastic. I remember, and there's a man on Alex Jones's show. He's one of the old school. He wrote this book for Nexus. It was something like "Angels Don't Play This Harp." And I remember being like a 16-year strong kid reading this article about how you don't want to ever drink water in plastic because it has these disrupting hormones that can jumble up all these xenostrogens and things like that. So I remember at the time being in this hotel, and they had this lovely panning Italian water, but it was all in plastic. So I remember thinking, I've got to sort this problem out. And at the time I was fasting, I was like, I'd gone there, I was on this zeolite, which is this volcanic mineral that had this, the theory behind it is it's negatively charged. And things that are not good for you are positively charged, like positive ions. That's why when you go to the mountain, or you go to the ocean, or you go into the forest, you feel so good, don't you? Like that time where, you brush the cobwebs off, that the wind brushes the cobwebs off. And so I was in this, and the idea is this, you bring in this negative ion into the body, and it's able to then draw this positive ion, lock it into this cage, and just remove it. It's like the volcanic minerals. It's like coming back to that whole idea of they're chemtrailing us, or there's Fukushima in the ocean. And we're not being ignorant, but we're saying, well, nothing can beat the vastness of the ocean and this this volcanic magma spewing into the ocean, mixing with the ocean, and this making this amazing mineral that we're able to then bring it into our bodies. And I remember being in this hotel thinking, I've got to solve this problem. And as I walked out into all these tower rises, John, in Orlando, of hotels and everything, guess what was there? This little corner shop. And I walked in there, and it had Palestinian owners. And I was like, oh my God, you're an oasis. And in there, John, they had the exact water in the expensive hotel in glass bottles. It was amazing. And well, anyway, I was like, well, there's my water sorted. Well, then I'm with this group of raw foodists, and we're in this hotel, and I was saying to them, because it's like a conference, and I'm there with them going, we can't eat this food. We're supposed to be raw foodists. We're in America. I've traveled all this way to see you. We've got to go and find the food. So we drove an hour, John, up to this little place in, it was called the Present Moment Cafe with the chef, Chad Sarno. You'd love his food. It's amazing. He's like this great old school raw food chef. Amazing food. And he'd put together their menu. And this was in a little place called St. Augustine. And wonderful. You've probably been there. It was a lovely little place. And it was like, for me, I'd never been anywhere with all this lovely moss. We have lichens here, but there was all this hanging moss. It was wonderful. It was like, it was wonderful. And we got into this, we knocked on the door, and they were like, oh, we've closed. And we're like, we've got a party of us. There's loads of, we've traveled an hour to come here. And they let us all in, and we filled the tables up. They made us all this lovely raw chocolate and everything. And they brought out, John, I don't know if it's the same stuff. I reckon it is. They brought out, I found in there this aloe vera juice, and I think it had Port Arca. Did it have like a flower of life on there or anything like that?
Well, it was called, originally it was called Sea Silver,
Yeah.
and then it changed the company. It became Sea Aloe, but
Okay.
and it had like an image of like all the ingredients in as a kind of a mandala on the bottle.
I got this, John. I bought it because what was unusual was this was the only aloe. Oh, it wasn't in that. It wasn't in that bottle.
That's a later version.
Oh, it's a later version. Well, this one, what was unusual was that there wasn't any sorbate, because these little food mongers, haven't they? The FDN, they've started to put like little bits of sorbate in it and stuff. And I thought, wow, this is quite unusual. It hasn't got the sorbate. So I brought a bottle home, but because there was so much in what you just said, John, seaweed. Yeah. So the other day, I had to go west to Aberystwyth, seaside town. All the bikers, I think the lockdown had ended, And when I'm going there, John, if I know I'm going to the seaside, I take my bags with me, and I went down to the sea. I filled my bags up with the sea. It's wonderful, actually. If you ever come here, the birds that come from Scandinavia, the starlings, you know, the murmurings, they go under the pier. And the first thing I do when I get to Aberystwyth, I go straight to the coast and I look down because it's a coastal town, seaside town, and there was seaweed. And what did Zeesh do? He filled up his bags with seaweed. And as soon as I got home, I hitched all the way there, used this God given thing. Back in the 70s, John could have gone all the way to the mountains of Afghanistan and seen Zeesh's grandparents. Hung out with them, got to Italy and carried on to Iran and Damascus and wherever you wanted to go, Japan, wherever. But anyway, I came home then, and the first thing I did was I got the seaweed and I dumped it straight into my recycled dustbin, and that's going to go on the land. I'm going to feed. What I've been doing. You know, like when you wash yourself. Sometimes I wash my face with God's love. I started washing the soil with the seaweed, and I got a really good book on Basque seaweeds because my great grandparents are Basque, and I've been learning about the seaweeds, and now I'm learning about, and that's another good thing you can do. You can, it's just like, look where you're to, look at what's in your hedgerow, and just, that's what I've been doing. Is like, okay, I want to beekeep. Then I've gone to a beekeeping course, but then I've been like, well, he's focused too much on Bayer and nicotinoids, and that's okay, but I don't want to focus on that. And then gone and found a book and read about what the peasant farmers in Siberia were doing in Poland. And now I'm researching like what I'm able to do with the bees, and I'm surrounded by trees like a beautiful pine tree, and I want to do pine trees, and I'm not keeping myself contained.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you might want
seaweed.
to. There's a lecture cycle that's been published that Rudolf Steiner gave called Nine Lectures on Bees. And
Yes.
it's absolutely, it was one of the first books that I read. And it basically introduces you to a cosmic perspective that is just absolutely wonderful. And if you don't understand it right away, that's okay. Nobody does. And that's the
No.
point, the whole thing, really. And what's nice about Rudolf Steiner's work is that you don't understand it right away because you have to build something. It's like compost. Compost isn't compost until it goes through process. And in reading spiritual science, it's a process. So you begin the process, and then it has to go through fermentation in your consciousness until later on in life you'll think back on something that you've gotten from a Steiner lecture, maybe 20 years earlier, and all of a sudden you connect the dots and you go, aha, that's what it's about. Because see, the experience of the Grail is that it's something that happens gradually.
Yes.
And in coming to relationship with that understanding, that's like the understanding of nature, that you live within nature, and if you're in nature, instead of, if you're in a city, it's really hard to tell what time of year it is. Or if you're like in Southern California, the winter's not that different from summer. Yeah, but here I'm in a temperate region like you are, so it's really a wonderful expression of the seasons, and that is something that you can really live with strongly. I'd like to be able to share with people how they could get in touch with your blog. So, do you have the information on that? And also, if you have like a PayPal, somebody wants to buy you a cup of coffee or something like that, you could share that.
Yeah, so I've got 4 kids, so anything you feel that you want to, send over towards us, that helps keep them growing strong. So thank you. Sometimes all our money goes on food, so sometimes we can, we're then looking at how we can get other little bits and bobs. So my PayPal is Visionary Life Hacks. That's Victor Indigo Sierra Indigo Oscar November Alpha Romeo Yankee Lima Indigo Foxtrot Echo Hotel Alpha Kilo Zulu, with the PayPal thing, whatever that is. Visionary life hack.
It's PayPal
Yeah.
.me / and then what he just said. Mine is PayPal.me / John Barnwell 888, just like on the screen. Perhaps in the future you could put your Twitter handle on there. It makes it a little easier.
Yeah, I've just started to do a blog now called The Black Gold Garden, and I am the hashtag Opal Earthworm, because they're so inspiring, the earthworms, and oh, it's really good. Yeah, so John, thank you for having me here today. You know, I'm really enjoying these fireside chats. You know, if anyone's ever got any questions or whatever, my whole thing is that I'm 20 years holistic. We're a holistic family, and that's what we've been doing. You know, we've just wanted the best for our children, and we've come up against some fierce adversity from medical tyranny, and you know, we're piecing it together like what John's saying. You know, this seems to be the Bayer and all that kind of stuff, and you know, we got to just stand. If we don't stand for something, we'll fall for anything. You know, and
Yeah.
as parents, we deserve that choice to have the best for our children and for our future children's children and grandchildren. And it's really, you know, I was writing some notes earlier. If not us, then who? And if not now, then when? You know, and I'm really enjoying this learning, you know, this unraveling, this peeling back the layers. You know, I've sat with otherwise human beings like John that have been doing the work. And, you know, it comes down to like, we're just working it out. We're just, you know, obviously you've all done, for me, I'm just working it out. Just this dad that knows some stuff and, you know, and we might not think about it. The pillow that we're laying on, the bed sheet that we're pulling over us, you know, and the nests that we're creating. See myself pretty much like a, you know, I know how to sleep. If you're struggling with sleep, if you want to, you know, I sell natural medicines because it's safe. Like what John's saying, you know, it's about the charge. It's what we're bringing into the body. Helps us, doesn't it, John? Drinking good water, praying on the water. You can look at the works of Masaru Emoto and just simple things like that. That simple decision that you're worth it, because you are. You're really worth taking that time to invest in yourself and start to make those little changes equate to something. And my greatest thing that I can say is just be 1,000% all in. You can't, John could never be 89% John Barnwell, could he? I could never be like, you know, and it's that small percent that you, just, you know, you can't cheat on being who you are.
Yeah.
You can't cheat.
It really is about authenticity. And so, you know, if I go to the store and I look at food, packaged food, and I look, if it's got too many ingredients, then I'm going to try to avoid it, you know, because why are there all those ingredients in there? What's up with that? I want to, again, share, this is my first book, The Arcana of the Grail Angel, The Spiritual Science of the Holy Blood and of the Holy Grail. It's a study developed out of the work of Rudolf Steiner of the esoteric Christian stream that flowed from the Brotherhood of the Holy Grail to the Order of the Knights Templars and the True Rosicrucian Order. And in here, you're going to get all manner of diagrams that embody many of the things that we're trying to discuss here. And it's not for everybody. So if you're not prepared to expand your thinking, then avoid this book. But it's available on eBay in the United States. If you're outside of the US, we can make other arrangements. You can contact me through Facebook or what have you, and we can do some kind of PayPal deal. My PayPal's paypal.me / John Barnwell 888, and Zeeshan's paypal.me /
Visionary life hacks. Here to
Like,
connect, here to inspire, here to be the change.
yeah. And thank you so much, Zeesh. It's always good to
Thank you,
see
John.
you. We'll have to do it
Love
again
to,
soon.
love to all of you in America. Have a great time, and love to you wherever you are. Bye.
And one more thing about the books. You asked about the books. It's like having them around you. Yeah, I think so. There's some kind of connectivity that happens by proximity. Maybe it's like a form of bibliomancy. Anyways, have a good day, folks, and enjoy your coffee.